program that is aired on Win FM every Friday morning. I'm always your host. My name is Sandra Queely Atherton, and it's always a pleasure being here with you. We have time enough to share and look at information, collect data, and analyze data and position ourselves in the position that the world has found itself in. It is happening. It's happening all over. We have COVID-19 is a reality. We still have cases are rising. We have deaths now rising. We have variants, different variants, and we recognize that there's something really going on with this world. We don't know, and the minds of man, the hearts of man has become desperately wicked. The minds of man have been warped. And we are in a chaotic state. I suppose that's where the world is in right now. It is quite tough, but I suppose we just have to tough it out. We hear all the time, it's always this old adage that says, tough times never last, but tough people do. And I suppose that's one of the things that we have to do. I want to say condolences to families who would have lost loved ones. It's going to hurt me this time, but it's what it is. Karen was a worker at Win FM. I met her here. She's such a good soul. She's a great person. I really fell in love with her from love at first sight. It was. She's a girl that I admire. She's a girl that when she hears me cough, she'll bring me some water. And then she know definitely when I would need some sugar. So she'll bring me sweet, and then she'll always have some goodies back outside for me. But it wasn't that about Karen that I love. I love her spirit. She was such a humble soul. She was a loving person. She was a very caring person, very understanding and loyal person. Is a person that if you never knew, you would have missed out on getting to know somebody like that. The world needs people like Karen. It's an unfortunate thing that maybe the garden needs her most, and so she's taken from us at such an early stage. She has so much to celebrate. I know she was glorying the fact that her daughter was pregnant and she was getting a chance to see her grandchild. Thank God she did. But she's no longer with us. I'm so sad. She was, like I said, she was an employee here at Win FM. She was friends to people who love and adore her. She was a great mother. I can say that, and like her children would say, one of the best mothers ever. And she was just that kind of person that the world is going to miss. I'm going to miss her dearly. It's an unfortunate situation, but life goes on, I suppose. That's what life is all about. It's a circle. It's called a cycle of life. We come here for a purpose. Some of us doesn't even know why we're here. Some of us pass through, never have an understanding of why we came. But some of us who would have recognized why we're here and, try to create that kind of energy and live along amongst that kind of energy and positive energy. And we live in a world of darkness and all negative energy. We need to dig deep, start to do our meditations. And first of all, we have to start loving yourself and then start loving others. We're here for a short time. We now know that. We see children who are dying. We see adults who are dying. People are living to old age, but they're going to die. So we understand that in order for us to complete the cycle of life, death is a possibility. It's inevitable. And so now that we know that, we just have to make sure that from today, if some of you want to start today out on some positive affirmations that you're going to love. No matter what, you're going to love, you're going to live, you're going to laugh. And you're going to make sure that the energy that you carry, somebody can benefit from it. And you're going to walk with a smile that is infectious, and so that if you can't give anything in life, give a smile. It works. Trust me, it does. Right now, I need a smile. I need a hug. I need a lot of things. I wish I could just zap people back. You look at the world and you see, and I always say, I mean, everybody has a purpose, but sometimes you look and see others have so much more responsibilities and other things that they can, contribute to, but they're taken from us. But God knows best. We always say that. Sometimes I wonder, but it's a fact. He knows best, and he does what he has to do, and we can't question it. That's what my mother used to say, but sometimes you just have to. It's human nature. We always want to question. It's October. It's a month of many things. It's a month of Breast Cancer Teachers Appreciation Month. It's a month for the mental health, and we have lots of that going around here in St. Kitts and Nevis. It's a month that we pay a little attention to because really there are no holidays, and people who are working like to know that there are months that have holidays in it. So everybody likes September because we have two good holidays. Everybody like some people like August again. We have two holidays, and people look forward to Christmas because you get time off from work. But October is a month that we have to start focus on because it's a month where the ailments that we have and the people who have gone through and who have survived, it's a situation where all of us can be and could become victims of cancer, mental health. We have now the challenges that we have in this world today. We know prices are going up, food shortages, we have COVID-19. We have so much things that we have to deal with. We have to be strong mentally, and so we have to pay a lot more attention to mental health. It's tough. It's really, really tough, but we have to tough it out. And I think that's where we're at right now, trying to tough it out. I have a guest this morning, and I want to see. It's a person that I admire. She's a woman. It's not because of the fact that she's into politics, but she has information. She does natural resource management. This is what we need at this point in time. We need to see how we can look at our natural resources and see how we can maximize them now. Because, like I said, the ailments that we have today, we have to start looking at our lifestyle, making lifestyle changes. We have to look at the foods that we eat because it all starts in the gut. All diseases, they say, start in the gut. You can understand that. It starts with the foods that we eat. It's basically our lifestyle, not enough rest, too much stress, and not enough nutrients that we put inside of our bodies. I have online. Unfortunately, she can't be here, so we're going to talk to her online. I hope she's still there. Janice, are you still there?
Yes, I am. Good morning, Sandra.
Hi, good morning, Janice, and thank you for accepting my invitation. I have you here again, and it's people think that we can only talk politics, but there's so many things that we can talk. But because of the fact that you're into politics, we can see how well equipped you are for the position that you want to be in when you look at the situations that we have in this world and how we're going to be able to cope. And we need people at the head who have information that would help us build our coping mechanism. I think we would have lost Janice. It's an unfortunate situation. Again, that's one of the bad things when we do things via telephone lines. It poses some issues some of the time where it just cuts out and cuts in, but that's what it is. But like I said, we need people who can help with our coping mechanism. And it's tough. It's really tough for me today. It's tough, but I'm going to tough it out. We have to help, we need people who can help us to get through these times. I think she's back online again. Let's see, she's there. Janice, you're there. She's not yet there. Unfortunately, she's not yet there. But, okay, she's there. Janice?
Yes.
Again,
yes.
Unfortunately, it's a line. Technology tends to drop out. So how are you today?
I'm doing well. Of course, at the current time, looking at all of the sadness that is around us, I must join you in extending condolences to all of those who would have, lost loved ones. It is definitely a time when we ought to be our brothers and sisters' keeper. You would have mentioned that we pass this way only one. We know it's a cycle of life, and whatever good we can do while we're here, let us just try to be as good as we can to each other and make our time here as enjoyable and as blissful as it can be. And so you mentioned this is the month of mental health awareness, teachers awareness, etc. And I think mental health right now is a big issue in the Federation. We know a lot of people are struggling from, just day-to-day challenges with making their payments for bills, a lot of uncertainties regarding the vaccine and just so many things that, weigh on people's minds. And some of us, we have to be strong. We have to come forward as if we are coping okay. But Sometimes you knock on someone's door and you have a conversation with them, and you would be surprised how much, they're carrying, what a heavy load they're carrying. And sometimes just having someone to speak with, means so much to them. And so we who are in that position really must make ourselves available and listen to the concerns of people and at least provide some hope and some encouragement that, we're in this position for a while. We can't say for a short while or for a long while, but if we all try to work with each other to make life better for everyone, then I think that in and of itself would help us to cope a lot better.
I like the word you use, work with each other, and it's something that it's my intention this morning is the intention that I had is basically change. You just make a statement there that would have changed even the course in which I want to go down, and the road in which I want to go down. Um, Work with each other. We're seeing a lot of bickering. People, it's frightening for me. We look at a world where we see things already skyrocketing, not sorry, just spiraling downwards. And what you see that is skyrocketing higher is hatred. It's just people are just hating, people are just demeaning others. People, there's no love. This world is void. For me, it's devoid of love because we're not seeing that. We have politicians fighting against politicians. We have citizens, people are fighting against people, politicians against the citizens. Where is this going? And is there any end of this in sight, or is it going to get worse? You're in that arena, and that is one reason why I asked you that question, because we're seeing it on a daily basis now. People are fighting for power, and in order to get there, we're operating like crabs in a barrel. Like we have that syndrome now, where people people wants to demean others so that they can reach the top. People try to bring down others so that they can get to the top. When is this going to stop?
Well, Sandra, I think it really has a lot to do with the focus and the purpose of why people are trying to either maintain power or to gain power. The power to lead, when you're in a position of leading, you must understand that the powers that you have are not for your own personal gain. You have certain powers to be able to negotiate certain things in order to be able to represent at a certain level. And it must be, in the best interest of the people that you're representing. And, my position is essentially that we have to look at the needs of the people and what is important to them. And I would just make a quick reference, for example, to the IMF when they were here and their concluding statement. And the two short-term priorities that they indicated for St. and Nevis was one, to contain the pandemic, and two, to support the economy. Now, when you look at leaders who find it necessary and important to travel abroad, when you have, you could say, near crisis situation with the people who you are elected to serve, to look after their welfare, and you realize that nobody expects anybody to get it right all of the time. But when you realize that you're facing a challenging situation and so many people are suffering because things are not put in place the way that they ought to, you would think that that would be a priority. Looking after the welfare of people must be a priority. And so when you look at the focus of the politicians and what their purpose is and why they want to be in the position of leadership, I can tell you 100% my position right now is because I am seeing the people of Nevis struggle, and they're struggling like they have not struggled before. And I've spoken to people, I've listened to them, and I know that better can be done if only the interest of people was put at the front and center of decision making. And so right now when you say, it's like, crabs in a barrel, etc., people find ways to win elections. But then you must look at their performance and how the lives of the people would have benefited. And if you're only seeing benefit in a small handful of people, and the rest of the people are struggling, and the rest of the people feel, neglected and not a part of the system, then you must conclude that the purpose and the reason for being in a leadership position is not well understood. And so, I see it where, for example, in Nevis, yes, I'm with the Nevis Reformation Party. I'm the leader of the Nevis Reformation Party, and I know what this party stands for. And this party was born, basically, out of the struggles of the people in Nevis. And we have come back with a resurgence because, if for no other reason, it seems that at the time when people in Nevis are struggling the most, that is when NRP really, rises to a certain level, because we understand that people are the reasons why we should be in leadership position. So, in Nevis, I could say that, the focus of the leadership, putting people at the front and center of decision making, I think that would help to alleviate some of the struggles that people are having right now, because that is our focus. And so when you look at, for example, supporting the economy, what are some of the things that are being done? Now, we need to be able to look at, for example, this is the month of breast cancer awareness, the month to recognize teachers. And we know that the teachers have been struggling. It has not been an easy time for them during this COVID-19 pandemic. And so how can we help to support the teachers in making their jobs easier? One of the things that we also need to be able to look at is to, kind of prepare our workers so that they can cope with the pandemic better than they are coping with it right now. And like I said, if their best interest is not the best interest of the leaders, then you can see why you're going to continue to have struggles and why mental health is going to be a real problem sooner rather than later in the Federation.
Well, statistics would have shown that stress is the number one contributor to chronic diseases and diseases on a whole. And just like you said, we have teachers who not being able to is not having to go to school and teach now. It's a different situation because they have to create an environment that is safe. And basically, because of COVID-19, you have people who would have had mastectomies, breast cancer. Stress is one of the contributing factors. You look at the economy right now, you realize it's the stress that is caused on lots of parents who are out there who are not working and have children to support, people who have their mortgages to meet at the end of the month, people who have the bus drivers have the payment at Horsford. You have people who are repossessing their stuff because people can't afford. I can tell you, I'm in business. It's one of the hardest times that we have ever met, but like you just have to tough through it, and you need leaders who are going to come up with ideas and just to alleviate some of the hardships that we are facing with today. And just like you said, not leaders who are going to go around the world, neglect chemicals for PCR machine, especially that one that is absolutely necessary in this time. People are stuck in quarantine, waiting for results to come back to see whether or not they're positive. That being in quarantine for 14, 21 days, having children home that you don't know how they're eating because you have not made provisions for that. It is really, really difficult, and you could understand why we definitely have to start looking at the mental health of our citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, because sooner or later we're going to have lots of people tripping. People are already tripping. So we look to leadership, and you are vying for that leadership position. We are looking for leaders who not just see as an opportunity to line their pockets. Leaders who just not looking at an opportunity to beat their chest and travel around the world. Leaders who are just not looking for an opportunity to invest in themselves. We're looking for leaders who can cope with situations like this and who can recognize that citizens are really, really hurting. I am looking down. It's basically looking to a small hole because we still can't seem to see anybody who's going to fit that position at this point in time. Because when you look at what's happening here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we recognize that people are not really the priority of politicians. Well, I must not say that though, because we would have seen some of the stimulus packages that have been put out there, government trying to cope with some of the situations, but then yet you see others who are behaving in a way where you think that okay, even if I don't pull my weight, somebody's going to support the cause and thinks it's going to be okay. How are we going to fix this?
Well, Sandra, you mentioned the testing, the PCR testing, and the fact that here in Nevis we would have had PCR machines. It was reported since last year, and they have not been operationalized up to this point. And people have to be in quarantine and waiting for the test to go over to St. Kitts for those results to come back before they can release. And looking at the latest SRO with the 24-hour quarantine, and understanding that based on that SRO, all visitors would be expected to undergo a PCR test and to get the results back. So we have been seeing a backlog now in the testing system, causing long delays of people being in quarantine. And we can only imagine that we're going to have longer delays because if you have a 24-hour curfew, you're going to have more people, coming to the country. And if they have to have a PCR test, then you can understand that there is going to be even more of a backlog. And, I am anxiously awaiting to see when the PCR machine, we're supposed to have 2 in Nevis, and none of them are operational at this time. And those, I think, are priority initiatives that really should be looked at. Now, the concern goes even beyond the delay in testing, because there seems to be no regard for these people who are placed in quarantine. And, one of the things the IMF report would have indicated.
Okay, we would have lost her again. It's an unfortunate situation. It's as, and I would ask you all to bear with us, but that's what it is when you have this line situation. Flo is having some issues. I am talking because of the problems that I am facing with. I don't know if Flo is aware of the fact that we're having issues, but there are some problems. It's just not happening the way it's supposed to happen. But we are in a technological world, and these are the things that are going to happen. So be prepared for the future. This is what the future looks like. I think we have her back online. Janice, you're here again?
Yes, I am.
And you were talking about
with these lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, one of the things that the IMF report would have indicated, based on the assessment that we had decades of surpluses, was that fiscal relief measures really should be kept in place until the recovery is well established. And so when someone is tested, whether it's through contact tracing or any other means, then they have to be kept in quarantine. Why is it so difficult to have persons who can ensure that these people have a meal to eat every day? Why is it so difficult to put a system in place that these people do not have to be isolated, away from their families, not certain how they're going to get, a meal to eat? I mean, there's just a big disconnect in terms of what we are aspiring towards and what is actually happening on the ground. And, sometimes you would say, well, the leaders, you have programs in place and different departments, should take care of these things. But if you're really paying attention to the people and listening to the struggles, I mean, how long are you going to say ignore the noise? You cannot ignore the noise of people when they're struggling. And if you realize that there is some, disconnect, find ways and means to relieve all of this struggles from people. Because, you see, when you have a physical ailment and when you can do a test and find out whether or not you're COVID positive, it's much different when people have mental health issues because you cannot see it. And sometimes, just one day separated from a family could be what it takes to really push someone over the edge. And so, we must try all that we can. There's something that is called preventative medicine. And so prevention, you may have heard your grandparents say this, prevention is better than cure. And so the little things that can be done, community by community or, parish by parish, just to make sure that people do not feel neglected and isolated, which are also triggers for stress and for mental health issues. These are simple things that can be done. You don't need a big budget to do these things. What is required is care for the people and for their welfare. And, sometimes I wonder, how come these things seem so, blatant to me? I mean, it's right there. How difficult can it be to look out for people and make sure that they don't feel neglected and they're separated from their families, they're not working, they don't know how they're going to pay their bills when they come out. When they come out, the electricity is cut, their water is cut. I mean, I mean, it just makes me shudder sometimes to feel that we could have people in leadership position who are not listening to the people and trying to respond and address. And like I said, these are not things that require a multi-million-dollar budget. I am sure the airfare from Nevis to Serbia could have, put a meal on so many families' table. So these are the things that you must look at and try to understand. What are the priorities for these people?
Well, you see,
how can you have so many people struggling and you feel it's okay to travel halfway around the world, the amount of money in airfare and all of these different expenses, and you have so many people here locked up in quarantine, cannot get their PCR test back, do not know how they're going to get a meal. Electricity is being cut. I mean, come on, I mean, if people don't see these things, then, oftentimes I say, we're very proud to announce that we are first in the Western Hemisphere in certain indices, and we're doing very well. But I really think that we should have some local indices where the people can say how well the government is performing with regards to the matters on the ground. Yes, it's good to meet certain global indicators, but you cannot be meeting global indicators when your people on the ground are struggling and starving and not being educated properly. And so these are some of the things that I'm saying. What are you doing on the ground to help the people to make their lives better, especially in these challenging times? Those are some of the issues that I have, Sandra.
You see, it takes a caring mind, a genuine caring mind. And it's a question I go back again earlier that I asked. We are looking at people who are aspiring to be in leadership positions, but they're not. It's not about the people, huh? It's not the people who they want to lead. It's about the benefits that they can get, and we have to change that cycle. We have to change that system where people who aspire for positions in leadership, it's all about themselves first. You look at them moving from not having anything, and in the first year, you see what they would have accumulated, and you ask yourself the question, how can somebody accumulate so much so fast on a salary that's supposed to be about $14,000, $15,000, notwithstanding the fact that they must have had bills before. There's some people, who are fortunate, who would have had monies before, but then they can do certain things. But then you look at their attitude and what becomes priority. You made a good statement about looking at the priority, or the not just the priority, because the needs of the people. There's some people out there who are genuinely needy, but we're not seeing anything done in certain circumstances to alleviate some of the hardships of the ordinary people. You're in Nevis and you understand that. And, it takes me right back to your form of area of expertise. You're in management of natural resources management. We recognize now that we have to come up with creative ideas. The world right now is in a state of chaos. We see there are food shortages. People are not even able to not just food, but there are lots of other shortages. And natural resources is what we're looking at, that we have to start going back to. Like I said, the world is a circle. And we are back to the point where we have to depend heavily on natural resources. What does Nevis and St. Kitts has that is unique What can we do so that our people here can benefit? I was having a discussion with this guy about the cannabis, planting cannabis for medicinal purposes. We are hearing and we are seeing that this is where the world is leading to now, the medicinal benefits of cannabis. These are some of the things that we can get into. What are your ideas about situations like that?
Well, we look at our economy, and we know historically we have been recognized for our fertile soils. These are natural resources. One of the concerns that I have is where we have lands designated as agricultural lands because of the high fertility and the quality of the soils. I see a total disregard for protection and or reserving those areas for agricultural production, and we're seeing houses being built in those areas. And when you do not really understand the importance of natural resources, your soil is fertile in a particular area, and what it would take in a different area for you to get your crop production up. You have some areas that are just naturally, enriched that way to produce your food. And so that is one thing that I'm seeing that I'm very, concerned about. When you just, eradicate those areas for short-term benefits. Now, when we look at the pandemic that we're in right now, and you go to some shops and they'll tell you that the price has gone up because of COVID. You realize that there's some irregularity in the ships coming here, and so there are programs already in place that can be capitalized, can be expanded to enrich our food production here. And I'm not just speaking about in a short period of time. I'm talking about looking at establishing agriculture and our food production as an important part of our economy and diversifying our economy. And so, we tend to lock ourselves into certain areas. We would say, well, here in Nevis, for example, we don't have any laws that govern certain things. I remember back when NRP was looking at advancing cannabis, there were some issues about the laws and what what is under the control of thinkers, etc. And when I speak so passionately about the fact that Nevis itself was given some level of independence with the return of the NIA and us being able to establish our own ordinances to direct our development and our growth. We cannot sit back and every time blame thinkers for not doing certain things. When we started the exploration of geothermal, there was no geothermal ordinance or no geothermal legislation. But under NRP, we were able to develop the necessary ordinances to advance geothermal. Unfortunately, the CCM government got in and fumbled that development. But we are in a position where we can develop ordinances. Yes, they have to be consistent where you already have, federal legislation. But that's where you need creativity and collaboration and people to sit down and come up and find ways to put the necessary ordinances in place in Nevis so that we can get the economy of Nevis growing once again. And so just sitting back and saying that, we cannot do this and cannabis because maybe it's a drug and, so are there ways that you can use your fertile soils, grow a very high grade of cannabis, and then if you need to export it for additional processing, etc., you do. It doesn't mean that because you're growing cannabis here, everybody on the street corner is going to be smoking cannabis. You look at it as an industry, and we have the necessary natural resources to flourish in that area. And if we need to create an ordinance to be able to capitalize in that area, then that is what we will have to do, and that is what NRP will do. We have done it before, we have done it again. Lately, you have been seeing the type of ordinances coming before the House of Assembly. It's really to do with the rich and the wealthy and the offshore investments and offshore insurance and offshore banking and these kind of things. Where are the ordinances to help create jobs for the people here in Nevis?
Wow.
And so those are some of the things that I'm saying. There is a total disconnect between this current government and the need of the people of Nevis and the authorities that we have in order to direct the development of Nevis in a much better way.
Janice, I like talking to you. You're very soft spoken, but you are very informative. The information that you have, and it comes out in your voice how genuine you are. We hear the loud noise. We hear people saying what they can do, and you wonder if how many terms you need to accomplish one thing because you're not seeing anything happening. And this is not because you want to talk or bash any politician, but as a person who would have gone out there and put you in, now you are reaping the benefits of my vote, and I am suffering the hardships of the vote that I would have made. And sometimes you wonder how much longer people are going to do this. I am waiting for politicians to start to take the citizens seriously, understanding our hardships and trying to come up with creative ideas to do certain things. Why are you sitting back? The whole world is moving towards medicinal marijuana. We have the lands. We, just like you said, what I see is happening here on the island of St. Kitts and Nevis. We see a lot of foreigners that are coming in, and they're the ones who are benefiting. When a foreigner comes in and say, okay, let's give me 20 acres. This guy came and had a discussion with me. Say he wants to meet the Prime Minister because he wanted to see whether or not he can get 20 acres of land so he can plant cannabis. And I watched him in his face and I said, so why are you coming to St. Kitts looking for 20 acres of land to plant cannabis? Kittitians have been planting cannabis for years. Don't you think that our own people can get that same 20 acres of land and benefit? We're not waiting for foreigners to come in to start to plant cannabis. We are waiting for governments to start giving the locals their land so that they can go out and they can start planting. It's an industry. It is a very lucrative industry. And we have to start because we are being left in the back. And what you're seeing is that the protection is not for our local people, but for the foreign investments that we always look to. And when these foreign investors come in, at the end of the day, the locals suffer because at the end of the day, these people are coming in with grants and loans, and especially look at the Chinese now. They're coming in and they're taking over. Why? Because they are getting the assistance from their governments to come here and set up shops and then take our monies and send it back to China. And that is what they're doing all over. And I'm sitting down and I'm watching and I'm wondering, is it just me? How can people in government realize the leaders that we would have lost her again, but why can't the leaders that we would have put into positions have an understanding that you have to start to make sure that the wealth stays here? When these people come and start to set up shop and they take our monies, they send it back to a country to build their economy while ours are struggling. Janice, you're back, or people go to St. Martin sometimes and they buy food stuff because the food stuff here in St. Kitts and Nevis is too expensive. What is happening is that the money is going outside of our economy and building other economies. And I think this is so simple. I'm not a very educated person. And these are people who would have gone on and they boast that they have had PhDs and all kind of other degrees and everything else to the name. But the simple problems, the simple solutions they can't seem to come up with, that is the problem. Maybe we have too many educated people who do not have an understanding of caring and genuine caring about the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. We might have to start looking at electing people who genuinely care and not people who are educated.
Well, I know that I'm well educated, but like you say, you need to have that overall, emotional intelligence as well, where you can understand and be empathetic, with people. But you said something a bit earlier that I would want to expand upon with regards to someone coming into, and looking for 20 acres, right? Mm-hmm. And if it is that the government wants to develop an agricultural industry where we can export products, we would not have enough people in Nevis to do the necessary work.
Exactly.
And so I would not discourage persons who want to come here. What I would say that the government has failed the people of Nevis by not providing the necessary framework to create employment opportunities where all can contribute and help to develop Nevis. Because we have a very small population. And in some areas that is hurtful to us because we don't have a large market and the economy is small, and so we're not able to develop and attract certain types of businesses. But if we create the type of industries, I mean large-scale industries, I'm talking about hundreds of acres of orchards and this sort of thing, right? Then you would need people to come in and contribute to building the economy. But based on the situation that we have right now, the government is not doing its job in terms of creating employment opportunities. And so the meager, opportunities that are there, you then find competition between, foreigners coming in and the locals who are here. And people would say, oh, the locals who are here, they're lazy, they don't want to work, foreigners will come in and they will do work, etc. Well, this is where the government must listen to the people and understand. We speak about a 98% literacy rate. We have all of these highly educated people, but we're not providing any opportunities for them to be, engaged in a meaningful way to help to build the country. We talk about we're living now in the digital era. I cannot even have a conversation without the lines keep dropping. What is required to develop, a telecommunications hub right here in Nevis, so that even if nowhere else, we have that ability. And what would that do? That would then attract the tourists that you would need because you have reliable telecommunications capability, right? We started out with the geothermal. We have not advanced it. And so you're not going to find too many investors willing to come here to have to rely on the use of fossil fuel. We have to look at renewable energy. Look, I think it's developing $70, $80 million renewable energy facility.
Yeah.
And what are we doing here in Nevis? So, I would not say that our people are lazy. Yes, some are lazy, but I am not seeing that as the reason why you're seeing this kind of divide that you have right now. We must know our people. We cannot say we have the best education system and we're training our students. Students have 8, 9 subjects and cannot find a job.
No,
and the government doesn't see anything wrong with that.
Exactly. When you look at
the type of issue that I'm saying, you must understand. You cannot be training, and then provide no opportunities for the youth to have meaningful employment. And then when they leave the country now, we say, oh, we have brain drain, and people go out and they don't want to come back. Well, the government has a responsibility.
Exactly.
And so, I looked the other day at the Prime Minister Pierre over in St. Lucia, how he was able to work with the Taiwanese to get funding to create housing opportunities there in St. Lucia. Well, we can work with the Taiwanese and others. We have the Green Climate Fund, a lot of different entities that we can work with to develop the type of industries that we want in Nevis that would cater to our people. We kind of want to say, oh, we only want, high-end tourists and we only want this and we only want that. And you're not doing anything to advance us in those areas. And so that is why you're going to have this sort of situation where if your expectations of people is that they only work, certain jobs, then you're always going to have this situation where you're going to have high unemployment rates because we're educating our students. Our students are intelligent. They have all of these subjects, but we're not providing opportunities for them to be employed here. And that is because you must be connected with the people and understand the needs and understand what your role in government is to provide for your people, not to take from them, or not just to create and provide for a handful of people.
Well, let me tell you something, Janice, and I can't seem to understand why we always only think about importing stuff. We don't think about exporting stuff. Nevis is mango land. When you look into the supermarket, you see all of these dehydrated, dried fruits. People love dry fruits. And we're getting back to, like I said, we're going into an era where we have to learn how to dry and how to preserve our fruits. You have lots of fruits in St. Kitts, and you walk on the streets and they're all over just on the ground. We have the Taiwanese here. People should have been learning how to how to preserve these foods, how to export these food, how to sell. We have tamarind in abundance. I see Best Buy brings in sweet tamarind and sells them on the shelf, and people buy them. We have lots of resources, natural resources here that we are overlooking, and I'm waiting for somebody who could come up with an idea where we can create our own instead of having people. A foreigner can come in and say, "Okay, think you have some good tamarind. Let's bring a factory here that we can use and how to process them, how to pulp them, take off the pulps, and ship them away, and people can use the pulp to make other things. People make all kind of ice cream, food, lollies, all sort of different things from the pulp of the fruits, and a lot of fruit. The star apple, we have the soursop, we have the mango, we have the what you call them, the star the what you call it, the wax apple. We have all of these different foods where you can get pulps and get into. We have to start looking and stuff, getting people to come and see us. We need to go out and start getting our stuff out there. We have factories that come exploit our workers, pay them minimum wage to get this stuff done here and ship away. Why can't we do that ourselves? Why can't we invest in our natural resources, our human resources here, and get people, to start to look into exporting stuff? The boats come from St. Vincent, they come from the Windward Islands to bring foods to us. When we have all these lands up in mountainous lands where they're not cultivated, they're not even given out. These are the things that government can start looking into. And I've looked at it for years, and I can't seem to see when somebody's going to use the initiative. I said it, Nevis, we are accustomed to have all those citrus foods. Remember the little tangerines that we used to have, that green tangerine that we used to have, the shaddock that I don't ever see anybody, the bittersweet and the limes. Why can't you have an orchard where you can grow all of these citrus fruits and we can export them the same way? Why can't we do things like these? Why are we waiting for people to come in and then just like you said, you sit around and say, "Oh, people are lazy"? Give the people an opportunity to do things. People are studying entrepreneurship now. Children are coming out of school, have no sense of where to go. Government doesn't have any land to give. What are they supposed to do?
Sandra, I would tell you this, right? One of the issues. There are a number of issues, because each time I speak about an issue and an issue. When we have big foreign investors coming in, we bend over backwards and we give them all kinds of incentives to get their business up and running, with the hopes that they would provide employment opportunities for our people. No, we're speaking about natural resources and agriculture and food production, etc. Nobody, yes, on one hand, you could look at a large-scale development where you develop manufacturing plants and these sorts of things. But we also must recognize, as you mentioned, training so many people in entrepreneurship. But when you look at the small businesses, there is no break for them.
None.
And so if for example, we make a decision that we want to export crop A, whatever crop it is, and we could empower however many farmers in their areas and know, listen, we're going to have a market, you grow this crop and you bring it to us. We'll give you these amounts of incentives, and not just in agriculture. But our small businesses here struggle. They struggle because nobody provides the kind of incentives that to get them up and off the ground. The same way that we provide incentives to the large businesses coming in. And so they can come in and they can have tax breaks for however many years and all of these different things. But when you have local people trying to set up businesses, to get off the ground, they don't get any break on their rent. They don't get any break on their electricity bills, and you have to get into the market and try to, market your product, etc. It's very difficult.
Janice,
for small businesses to survive here.
Let me tell you something.
This type of environment.
We have to break here because we have voices coming up next. Can I ask you a favor? Can you come to think it's on Friday? Next Friday, we can sit down and have continue this discussion, because it's a discussion that needs to be continued. People have to see and understand that there's hope. There's hope on the horizon, and we have what it takes to take us to the other level. So, can you make Friday a time that you can come and we can sit down and have this discussion? Because I
will plan a Friday. I can't tell you which Friday it will be, but I will plan to come down on a Friday At least we wouldn't get bumped off the
Yeah,
go off there.
but I want to follow up with this one because we're going to leave a lot of areas that we don't have the information. We haven't given the information. We're going to leave that hanging. But I wish we could do it this Friday, next Friday coming. So if you can plan around that and you could come down next Friday and we can do the program. Because we don't want
All right,
to
I'll get
follow
back to you on
up
that one.
again because that's what we're doing, breaking off and then having to start over again. We just want to continue to have a follow through.
All right, sure. I'll follow back with you on that.
Okay, great. I really appreciate you coming in. We have people coming in now for Voices. It's a program that runs from 11 o'clock and we always have to be on time and I'm infringing. It was a pleasure having you, Janice, and I'll talk to you when I get home and we can see how we can discuss next Friday. Okay? Okay, it was a pleasure having Janice here, and we see that we have so many things that we still yet have to talk about. We have so many areas that we have not yet got into, and it's definitely it's a conversation that we need to have. We're out of time. It was always a pleasure being here. Today's Friday. Remember to always adhere to COVID protocols, that is social distancing. Wash your hands, wear your mask. We have vaccination, Pfizer, and we have AstraZeneca for those of you who have not yet taken your vaccination. Consider the facts. If you want to take it, start doing that now because it's absolutely necessary. We see what is happening. People are dying. And if it can save lives, according to the science, then it's something that we should seriously look into. My name is Sandra Quiliatis, and it was a pleasure. If you're going to party with caution. And that is one of the things that we have to take into consideration. See you next Friday. It's always a pleasure. And stay tuned. Voices is up next.
What me not think is bad. Me no know